Today we're making cranberry orange pound cake. This cake is ready to take its place next to Thanksgiving pumpkin pie, to accompany a cup of coffee at Christmas brunch, or just to brighten up an otherwise dreary January day. No Bundt pan? No problem. You can bake this in 2 loaf pans and it's every bit as tasty. So grab some cranberries and orange and let's get baking. We'll start by putting 2 3/4 cups or 550 grams of granulated sugar into a large mixing bowl. And then we're going to add our orange zest. If you're using already grated orange zest, that'll be about a teaspoon, and just stir it right into your sugar. Or you can grate that freshly yourself, which is what I'll do here. I'm going to use the zest of an entire orange, all right? And when you do that, you want to get just really the orange part of the peel, not way down into the white, because that's a little bit more bitter. All right, once I have my orange zested, and you can see the outside still orangey looking, I've just taken the very outer layer of that off. I'm going to set it aside because we'll juice that orange for our glaze later. And I'm going to take that orange zest, and again, you can do this whether you're working with fresh orange zest or dried. I'm going to work it into the granulated sugar with my fingertips. And what that does is the abrasion, the rough texture of the sugar rubbed against the orange peel helps to bring out the flavors of the orange. So we'll work that in. And then we're going to add to this our butter. So finish this up, clean off my fingers, and in goes the butter. And this is a pound cake, so we're using a lot of butter. We're actually doing just short of that pound of butter, so 3 sticks instead of all 4 from a box of butter, which works out to 12 ounces of butter. And we're going to make up the rest with some sour cream later, so we wind up with plenty of good tasty dairy in here. All right, and we are going to mix this until the butter and sugar are completely incorporated together and it's become light and fluffy. So this will take several minutes on medium, either with a stand mixer as I'm going to do, or just a hand mixer. All right, so we'll see this when it's nice and light and fluffy. My butter and sugar is mixed together and has taken on a lighter color and a bit of a fluffier texture. I did stop to scrape down the bowl once during the process, and it took about 4 minutes mixing on medium. So quick note about the butter, we want that at room temperature. Forgot to mention it earlier, otherwise it's not going to mix together well. You can always cut it into smaller pieces or even microwave it on very, very low just to get it to soften up a bit. And I did use the wrappers from the butter to grease my Bundt pan. I'm also going to take the liberty of giving that a quick spray of oil before I put the batter in, because Bundt pans are notoriously tricky when it comes to releasing the cake. So speaking of things at room temperature, we have 6 eggs, also at room temperature, and we will be adding them one at a time, mixing after each. And with the first egg, I'm also going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. So here goes our vanilla and our first egg, and we will mix that all together so that the egg starts to be incorporated in before we add the next one, and we'll see what it looks like after that. The eggs and vanilla are all mixed in, and now we're going to add our dry ingredients. So in a separate bowl, I've already measured out 3 cups of flour, that's 375 grams, To that, I will add a ½ teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of baking powder. A traditional pound cake is leavened just by the air that we beat into the butter and sugar and eggs, but we're going to give this a little extra boost with that baking powder. And anytime you have a leavener like baking powder or baking soda stirred into dry ingredients, you want to give that a good 30 seconds of whisking with a whisk or a fork or something. If you're mixing it into your wet ingredients, usually those are going to get mixed pretty thoroughly anyhow. But we don't want a pocket of leavener here and none there. It will affect the rise of your cake or cookies or what have you, and the taste too. All right, so we will add this, this flour mixture in 3 parts alternately with sour cream, and we've got a cup of sour cream here. So we will alternate that, and that cup of sour cream comes in at 8 ounces if you're measuring that way. All right, so a little bit of the flour, and we'll mix, and then the sour cream, and we'll just alternate until we have that all just incorporated. We will leave just a teeny bit of our dry mixture in the bowl here though, because we'll toss our cranberries in with it. All right, our sour cream and flour are incorporated into the batter, so we're going to move that away from the stand mixer. Give everything a quick stir with a large spatula, and then we're going to take our last ingredient, our cranberries, and this is a cup and a half of cranberries, about 165 grams. I'm going to put that in the bowl that held the flour mixture, and I left about a spoonful of flour in the bottom of that. We're just going to toss that around. Use your hand if you want. And coating the cranberries, we're trying to at least, in a little bit of flour helps them not to sink. And this is something you can do with chocolate chips, with nuts, with anything, blueberries, anything that you're stirring into a cake or a bread. Right, only one got away from me there. Track that down in a minute. But the rest of these, I'm gonna just fold gently into our cake batter, and then we will carefully pour that into our prepared Bundt pan. Get this out of the way, and here is that Bundt pan, coated with butter and a little spray of oil too. And we are going to get our batter evenly spread into that pan. Give that a quick swipe with the spatula just to make sure that it's fairly even. And to knock any of the extra air out of that, any pockets of air that might be there, we're just going to drop the pan onto the counter once or twice. Maybe one more time. All right, and into a 350-degree oven it goes. This is going to take a good hour in all likelihood, but start checking it at 50 minutes just in case. All right, and we will see it when it's out of the oven, and that'll happen when a toothpick tester comes out clean of batter. Our cake is out of the oven. It's been cooling for a while. It wound up taking an hour and 7 minutes to bake and have the toothpick come out clean. And of course we have those nice golden edges there. We're going to set it aside and let it keep cooling just for a few more minutes before we try to extract it, and I'll show you my favorite trick for getting a Bundt cake out of a Bundt pan. First though, we're going to make the glaze. We'll use just powdered sugar. This is already sifted. I hate sifting powdered sugar, but for a glaze or an icing, it really is a good thing to do. 1.5 cups, which is 180 grams or so of powdered sugar, and then the juice from the orange that we zested for the cake batter. And we're just going to put, probably use most but not all of this juice. If you run a little bit short, you can just add a little water in. If you want, you could add some vanilla extract as well. We're going to go slow here, but basically we're going to add probably about 3 tablespoons of liquid altogether. Just enough to make a pourable glaze, but something that's still going to be at least slightly opaque, because Bundt cakes, in my experience, no matter how careful you are or how many cool tricks you have or how well you grease the pan, it's tough to get a Bundt cake out of its pan without having it lose at least a little bit of cake here or there. So a nice glaze covers those odd little bits of cracked or stuck cake. All right, so whisk that just a little bit more. You can see it's got just a faint orange color from the orange juice, and there we go. You could just use water if you want. Again, you could use an extract. You could do milk too, but this works out nicely since we already used the peel of the orange. All right, so there's our texture. Pretty thick, but definitely pourable. So I will set that aside. Oops. And we will go to work on this cake. And the trick that I use is that I cut up the, I cut into strips the box from my butter. You could do this with an index card if you would rather. Any kind of lightweight, not quite something as thick as cardstock, but close. And what I'm gonna do is just work that around the edges of my cake. I'm gonna try and slide it as far under as I can get and wiggle a little bit. And I'm gonna work my way around the sides of the cake until I think I've got it all mobile, all right? And there are undoubtedly going to be stuck bits, but hopefully very few of them. So I'm going to work away at that, and then we'll see how the cake comes out. I have worked the bits of cardboard or cardstock all the way around, given this quite a few shakes, and the cake felt wiggly, so whatever's already stuck to the pan is stuck, and the rest of it's going to come out, and ta-da! Not too bad. Some bits that are cracked here, a little bit crumbly, but nothing that our glaze won't cover. So let's go ahead and drizzle that on, and kind of do a little zigzag here. And if you find that your glaze doesn't cover well, you can always make more, all right? And put that kind of second layer of glaze on after this one has set a bit, and that will help you, especially if you find yourself with quite a few visible cracks or places where you had cake that was really, really stuck. And do as I say, not as I do. Put a plate under this before you glaze it. I got carried away here and forgot to do that. All right. And once it's completely cooled, we can transfer this to a serving plate or platter or such. All right, so there we go. We have our cranberry orange pound cake. We'll let the glaze set and we'll give it a try. We hope you try this out too, and you check back every Friday at 4 o'clock for a new recipe.